The Fairfax County Courthouse, where the jury is continuing their deliberations right behind her. Stacey, good to see you once again. What is happening outside the courthouse? Any Depp-Heard sightings, rumblings, anything like that?
You know what? I had a sighting of a Depp fan, which I'm going to put up on my Twitter in a couple of minutes, who was outside in a very vibrant, colorful, bright dress with a sign in support of Johnny Depp. That's about the extent of it. I think the heat and humidity is keeping a lot of people away and indoors today, and people are just, waiting for something to happen perhaps before they converge on the courthouse. In terms of Depp and Heard, well, yeah, we've been telling you Johnny Depp was on stage last night in London with Jeff Beck for the third night in a row performing, and we're not sure if he's going to stick around and play the rest of the run with Beck in the UK this week, or whether he will fly back to hear the verdict read. It was a surprise appearance on stage with him to begin with that began on Sunday night. As for Amber Heard, we are hearing from sources that she is in the area and will be here when the verdict is read.
Let's talk about that. Do we have a sense of when the verdict is announced, what that's going to look like? Will we get advance notice? Is the scene going to change? Walk us through what we can expect.
So, what we've been told by the judge is when a verdict is reached, there will be an announcement made, and the judge will then have the verdict read at the top of the next hour. So what we interpret that to mean is, it's 11:35-ish right now. Let's say a verdict is reached at 11:55. Well, then it would be read at 1 o'clock. Or if it was reached at 12:25, perhaps not until 2 o'clock. So that's sort of the understanding under which we're operating, and that's to give all of the players, like Amber Heard, for example, time to get here. The rest of the legal team, although we know some of Johnny Depp's lawyers are inside and some of Amber's lawyers are inside now as well. This will give everyone who needs to or wants to be here time to get here. We expect some more fans and onlookers will show up in that time as well.
Yeah, and that, I think, once there's a verdict that has been reached, that whole scene behind you, Stacey, will look a lot different. We're probably going to see more people like the guy who just tried to jump in your shot before, so we'll probably see that.
Yeah, and Jesse, I've referenced the media set up behind me, the barricades. In front of that is a microphone stand. Everyone is standing by as soon as something does happen. Everyone who comes out who's involved in the case is going to be given an opportunity to speak. Obviously, we're going to have all of that live once it does happen, but in the more immediate future, just a reminder to all of our viewers, starting in just about 25 minutes, I'll be live here from 12 to 2 with Aunt Jeanette. Our own Gene Rossi will be joining us. We have an all-star panel. Linda Kenny-Bodden and other guests will be joining us live as well to answer all of our viewer questions about everything that has gone down in this trial so far, so don't miss it.
Yep, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, get your questions to us, and Stacey and the team will ultimately answer them on air. Stacey, before I let you go, one quick question. Scheduling today in terms of when the jury takes lunch and dinner and when they break.
Listen, Jesse, there's no set schedule. Yesterday, we know the jurors took lunch about 12:30, so we can say probably they're going to do it around then again sometime in the next hour, but, it's a day-by-day basis. Again, they broke for the day last night around 5 o'clock. So, there's no set hours. Anything could happen. So for now, we'll wait and see. But, if I had to guess, having started a little bit after 9, they'll probably, be breaking for lunch sometime in the next hour.
All right, Stacey Delicat, excellent reporting as always. Thanks so much. So, we're going to continue our coverage of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and we'll go back to Johnny Depp on the stand when he was confronted with, how should I say it, some of the arguably more tasteless language he used in his text messages. Let's hear what he had to say.
And that was one of the things that we connected on, is taking, even if it was a difficult or unpleasant situation, we would, do our best to deal with it with humor, as opposed to situation. We would, do our best to deal with it with humor, as opposed to, it has to be spread on the world like peanut butter. For example, the text that is about burning Ms. Heard it's directly from Monty Python in the sketch about burning witches and then drowning the witches. This is a film that we'd all watched when we were 10, and it's just irreverent and abstract humor. That's what we were referring to in those texts.
This was one of the first messages shown to Mr. Depp in his cross-examination. This is a message to Paul Bettany, his drug buddy, early on in their relationship, when he says, "Let's burn Amber. Let's drown her before we burn her. I will fuck her burnt corpse afterwards to make sure she is dead." Some of the most vile, disgusting language that you could ever imagine. That is what he said to her at the beginning of the relationship. So let's look at how the relationship was bookended. You remembered Mr. Depp the other day in response to some text that we'll see later saying, "I don't write like that." This is a bookend of the relationship. This is after it was over. I asked Mr. Depp to read that top text. You'll remember that was the only thing I asked him to read, and he immediately said, "I didn't write that text," even though, of course he did. Even though he wrote the text under it that said, "Hopefully that cunt's rotting corpse is decomposing in the fucking trunk of a Honda Civic." That's how he bookended their relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, these words are a window into the heart and mind of America's favorite pirate. This is the real Johnny Depp. This is the real Johnny Depp after Miss Heard decided that she couldn't take it anymore, decided that she needed to leave him. And I'm not going to reread this whole text to you. But this is where he says she's begging for global humiliation. And she's going to get it.
Okay, so Karen, other than the fact that these messages, the ones that are not directed to Amber Heard, basically show that he could be an angry, violent guy who, if he's writing these things, who knows what he's like behind the scenes. But the messages that were directed to Amber Heard, where he's calling her pretty insulting names, is that verbal abuse? Is that emotional abuse? Is that psychological abuse? Is that emotional, in the sense, mental abuse? Is that the sense that, because that's what J. Benjamin Rottenborn has said, that outside of the physical, the text messages themselves could be a form of abuse. Do you see it like that?
Well, if they were directed at Amber, if he was sending those, and there are some text messages, I believe, that were between Amber and Johnny, but the focus of the ones that we just saw in the clip are to his friends. And not that that excuses at all the content of those text messages. As he indicated, these were things that you said in private, right? But I think that he and his team had to weigh in moving forward with this case. They knew that these text messages would come out and the information that's contained in the audio. So I think that those things have to be separated. When Mr. Rottenborn says, these are examples of verbal abuse, they have to be directed at Amber. And these, meaning Johnny Depp, sent those specific messages or threats or whatever to Amber. And that's not what we saw in this most recent clip. So I would make that distinction.
But Matt, we talk about how he's fighting two battles here, the court of law and the court of public opinion. Those texts, those audio tapes, the video of him smashing the cabinet. If you're an executive at a major company, are you going to put Johnny Depp in your next franchise film after everything that came out during the course of this trial?
Well, that's a good question, and it's something that we talked about very early in this trial. What's the end game here? He's trying to rehabilitate his reputation, I guess, by all this. His lawyers have argued that his reputation is tarnished. I don't know that this trial did much to rehabilitate that. In fact, it may have made things worse. We've seen intimate details of his lifestyle. He's in a drunken stupor. He's abusing drugs. He's very violent in the home. At least we've seen on video, with regard to, inanimate objects. So where do we draw the line? We hear about this very outrageous, texting and the terms that he uses. I'm not sure what you think about a guy after this, whether he wins or loses this trial. Is he the kind of guy that you want to employ as an actor in a major picture in which you're spending millions and millions of dollars? That's the fundamental question.
A good point. It's something we're all thinking about. And look, if you look at just the supporters outside the courthouse, you'd say absolutely. But there is a larger world outside of that courthouse and outside of the people following. But anyway, we're going to continue to break down this trial. A lot more to talk about. Stay with us here on Law and Crime. We'll be right back right after this. Welcome back, everybody. We're breaking down the Johnny Depp-Amber Heard defamation trial as we eagerly anticipate a verdict out of Fairfax County, Virginia. We're keeping a very careful eye on what is happening there. Stacey Delicat and Jeanette Levy are in the ground on Fairfax, updating us on the very latest. As we close out the show, as we close out the hour right now, I wanted to play some really important audio. Audio tapes in this case played a crucial role, kind of give us a behind-the-scenes glimpse of what was happening with the couple behind closed doors. But this audio in particular, you have to ask, whose case did this hurt more? And you're also going to hear Amber Heard's response to it. Take a look.
It would be released through documented people coming on the record and having the protection to do so that haven't had yet. It would be eyewitness statements. It would be evidence, tons of it, and it would be through years. And it would be unbelievable to imagine that either I'm in A, secret fake club, or B, I've had
a secret what?
I've had a secret fight club, or that I have been plotting to do this for for 3 years, and while taking pictures of it and documenting it, just saving it up for the right time when I'm not asking for any money and have nothing financial to gain from it. But no one is going to believe that. No one is going to believe that one of the two alternatives, either I'm in a fight club, or I've been going through hair and makeup, or going through makeup through all these years, where I have corroborating text messages between people that match those dates of those timestamps, validated photos of either corroboration between people hearing us or corroboration of next day, Whitney sending text message to Kevin, him responding, or the kind of stuff like between me and people in your life. It is insanely cross-corroborated. Then it is a plan. I'm going to put makeup on myself and take pictures throughout the years and just sit on it for years. While having this imaginary life run parallel to it. Do you understand that the pictures I have match with text messages to my mom back and forth about it? And text messages between, say, Raquel and my mom, or Raquel and my dad, or, between my two friends. Or there's a text message where I tell Jody the night before I had that James Corden night show thing, where I say, hey, Jody, I've had an accident. I think I have a busted lip. I may have a busted nose and 2 black eyes tomorrow, because it doesn't matter. There is nothing, and all of that won't be me throwing you in the bus. That will be evidence in this case, which it will be criminal as well, because I cannot go on Friday and file without filing a police statement first. And the only reason I haven't had that police statement, which has been used against me, by the way, every day, and the only reason I won't do it, I haven't done it, is because I don't want to hurt you, and that means it goes out of my hands. And the third-party prosecutor come, and a criminal lawyer come, and they went, the problem is, hearing from you, your biggest struggle is that it's the most solid evidence case of domestic violence I've ever seen. And if you give this over to them or present any part of this, they will prosecute him. And I felt like I would never ask for you. It's hard for me to even understand. I don't call my phone so in my head, and it's hard for me to even accept any sort of victimdom ever.
Can you please explain what the context of this was?
I was begging Johnny to not make me prove what I've had to sit on the stand in front of all of you and prove and talk about. I was begging not to do this and have to sit where I'm sitting today. I didn't want this. I don't want to be here. I didn't want to be there then. And I was trying to point out something to somebody who I thought did not have a firm grasp on reality.
Objection calls for speculation.
It's overruled. Good. Thank you. I was trying to point out how absurd it would be for him to keep making me prove this by calling me a liar. I was trying to get him to not call me a liar, because everything that I had said to date and everything I've said to date now is the truth. And I was begging him not to make me prove it, that there were photos, that there were witnesses, that there was my testimony. There were years of me with injuries. Oh on the dates where we were fighting, and they were documented. I mean, pictures from 2012. So I was trying to say to him, either you'd suppose that people would rather believe this is a hoax, elaborate, well orchestrated, year-long campaign for what? Or that, what? It just seemed crazy. And I thought no one was advising him in his best interest. I thought no one was telling him the truth. I know he's surrounded by yes men, and I thought nobody was saying to Johnny, this is crazy, don't do this. And I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to hurt him. I loved him so much. That's why I'm explaining to him why I didn't file criminal charges. I didn't file a police report, even though it was being used against me. I didn't want this to go to a prosecutor. I didn't want this to hurt Johnny. I don't want this to hurt Johnny.
So Matthew, in that audio, you can question when did she know this was going to be for the world or not? But assuming it wasn't, she's telling Johnny Depp, why would she make all this up, basically? And she's saying that on the stand. Why would I make all this up? What do I have to gain? Why would I put myself through this? Don't make me go forward and try to prove what happened. That's an important piece, and maybe a compelling piece. What do you make of it?
Well, it's complicated, Jesse. The jurors have to wrap their head around why, someone who is making this pitch to their estranged partner would want to tape that, and why would you go into such detail in a conversation about this unless you were doing it because you were recording it? Those are important questions that the jury has to answer. Is this information that they've had so much access to, is that normal? Is that the way that a relationship would unfold? That you document all these bad things that have happened during your relationship? I mean, we all have family albums, and we all share those great moments together, and we look at them. And I don't know of many people that keep an album of all the bad things that happen in their relationships and document it audibly and visually. So I think, that dynamic in this case, this agreement that we're going to tape each other's conversations, is really something that the jury is going to have to wrap their head around, because I don't think it's normal. I don't think that's what most people experience in their lives. And that's going to have some impact on this.
Her reasoning would be that Johnny wouldn't remember anything that he did, and I get that. And this is a case, in a relationship unlike anything that we have really seen. Matthew Mangino, Karen Felicia Nance, thank you both so much for coming on. Really great insight into this case as always. I am signing off. Linda Kenny Bodden is jumping in, but right now it is our live Q&A show with Stacey Delicat and the rest of our crew. We'll be back.
afternoon and welcome to For the Record. I'm Stacey Delicat and you are watching Law and Crime. I'm coming to you live outside of the Fairfax County Courthouse in Virginia. We are in day 3 of verdict watch in the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial. For the next 2 hours, we are going to be taking all of your questions, anything you want to know about the trial, anything you want to know about the jury deliberations, anything you have on your mind. Send us a tweet, go on our Facebook page, go on Twitch, go on our YouTube, leave your question there. We will try to get to it. We have an all-star panel of guests that are going to be joining me today to talk through it. But first, for those of you who are maybe just tuning in, and I bet that's pretty few of you, most of you I know have been following this trial every step of the way, we're just going to give you a quick refresher. Johnny Depp, of course, suing his former spouse Amber Heard for $50 million over her 2018 op-ed in the Washington Post in which she declared she was the victim of sexual and domestic abuse. Depp claims he was the real victim of abuse and that her op-ed cost him his career and millions of dollars and acting roles. Heard is countersuing Depp for $100 million, though, claiming that one of Depp's attorneys acting as his agent initiated a smear campaign against her, calling her allegations a hoax. It has all been playing out here for the last 6 weeks with high-profile celebrities and Hollywood executives testifying, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard themselves taking the stands multiple times. And now, of course, we are in verdict watch. We are about halfway through the 12th hour of jury deliberations. And here outside the courthouse, of course, I'm joined by Anjanette Levy, who's been here for all of it, the whole ride. Anjanette, so it's 12:01 on the dot.
Right.
We're expecting the jurors are going to go to lunch pretty soon today.
That's right. Just about noon each day, or at least yesterday and today. And I was told this would happen today. The bailiff, the master deputy, will see whether or not they want to go to lunch at noon. That's a knock on the door. You can't disturb the deliberations. They are responsible for bringing their own lunch. They're responsible for their own lunch. The court, the county is not paying to bring lunch into them. So they either bring their own or go to the cafeteria to eat. They have a really great cafeteria here. Also, we know that lunch was delivered for Johnny Depp's lawyers. So they will be eating lunch as well as all of us humans do. And maybe Stacey and I will get to eat lunch later too.
Not quite yet, after the lunch show.
We're going to have a late lunch.
So, I mean, how would you compare today to even yesterday? I mean, obviously, we've been saying it's super hot down here in Fairfax, super humid, ton of media outside. I saw, one Johnny Depp fan outside front earlier today with a big sign, but otherwise it's been pretty quiet out here.
Yeah, it's been really quiet. And all the media, all of us media types, we have tents. A lot of us do, a lot of us don't. But there's a big crowd of media set up for press conferences post verdict should those happen, and everybody's all set up. And it's just a waiting game. This is what we do. It's like the army, hurry up and wait.
Right. And so everyone has been asking. Certainly, a lot of the fans in the area want to know, are Johnny Depp and Amber Heard going to be here when the verdict is read? And we have been telling you guys, we even have some video to show you. Johnny Depp was on stage yet again last night, the third night in a row, performing in the UK at the Royal Albert Hall last night for the second night in a row with Jeff Beck. The first performance was a surprise, I think, on Sunday night when he popped up there. And then he performed with Beck again on Monday night. And we weren't sure, is he going to come back? And lo and behold, he was on stage again for a third night last night. A bunch of people in the audience took videos. Certainly a well-reviewed show from those who were there. We also found out that Kate Moss showed up at the concert.
She did, as a special invited guest of Johnny Depp. Of course, they dated in the 90s, from about 94 to 97, remained friendly. She had told, I believe it was Vanity Fair back in 2012, that after they broke up, it was years of tears, I think is something she said to that effect, that she had just cried and that he took care of her. And so she was a prominent figure. She ended up being a prominent figure in this trial because, of course, Amber Heard on the stand, you'll remember that moment she said at the March 23rd, 2015 incident in the penthouse at the top of the stairs, she said all she could think, she clocked Johnny Depp, she punched him because all she could think about was Kate Moss in the stairs. That opened the door for us to hear from Kate Moss about this alleged rumor that Johnny Depp threw her down some stairs. Well, guess what? Kate Moss got on the stand and said that was not true. She slipped and fell, and Johnny Depp took care of her. And she was at the concert last night as his invited guest. They remain friends.
Yeah, I mean, the Daily Mail reporting she was backstage, schmoozing it up with him. They got some good photos of her leaving the theater last night. Let's talk about Amber, because you're hearing she is in the area and she will be here when the verdict is read.
I mean, where in the area, I don't know, but I've heard at least 3 times today, this morning, that yes, indeed, she will be here. We were getting kind of that word. Nobody would say it officially over the weekend, at least not to me, but we were seeing one of her friends who's played prominently in this trial, kind of in the background though, was tweeting that she's here waiting for a verdict and he's off touring in the UK. So she was been sending out quite a few tweets about that. But we did confirm from a number of people that yes, indeed, Amber Heard will be here for the verdict. Johnny Depp, it sounds like that's up in the air. I mean, is he going to jet back here? Who knows? But there's only an hour's notice, and that's at least, if you fly a private jet, I think at least a 6, if not a 7-hour flight.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible he could be back by now, but Jeff Beck does have several more concerts scheduled in the UK this week, and so Johnny Depp might be sticking around for that. We just don't know. His attorneys haven't commented one way or another. So now I want to bring in our other guests who are with us this hour. Of course, we have our very own Linda Kenny Bodden sitting in the studio in New York, inside where it's cool and air conditioned. Hey, Linda. And I have Janina Atamian, a trial attorney, also with us right now. And so we're going to go to some of your questions, because there are a lot of good questions out there today. One that I think is kind of relevant as we get further and further into these deliberations, and we wonder, are they not agreeing, the jurors? Is that why this is taking so long? There's a question from the UK. Dick Dastardly 66 wrote me on Twitter, what happens if the jury is hung? Will there be a retrial, or does the judge take a majority decision? Linda, why don't you take that one?
Okay, so in Virginia, you have to have, let's start off with this, 7 people who vote unanimously for a verdict. For instance, if
we
the
can
vote
take it out
is
here. If
7-6
Janine, can you hear
or
me?
7-5, obviously you do not have a verdict. Usually in a civil case, unless Virginia is different, if they can't agree at all, that's it. No one carries the burden of proof. But we'll have to find out from Gene Rossi when he comes on whether Virginia in civil situations is different. But every case I've been in a civil case, you don't carry a burden of proof. A hung jury means no redo. It's not like a criminal matter.
Okay, good answer, Linda. So next question, I guess.
Yeah, let's go to the next question. I have Randy Hargs on Facebook says, why didn't Elon Musk, James Franco, and Jason Momoa take the stand on the case? We know that others who had relationships with Depp in the past, including Ellen Barkin, right? And of course, Kate Moss testified. We know Kate Moss testified because of the abuse allegations, that Amber had made regarding her and Johnny. But how come none of Amber's exes took the stand? Janine, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So really, it's really kind of a jurisdictional issue. They could have voluntarily taken the stand if they wanted to. And I will say this, Elon Musk tweeted a couple days ago regarding this, and he said it's a shame because the two of them at their best are unbelievable. So he kind of had support for both Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. He wasn't at the trial, and that may have been a choice on her attorneys, or it may have been, like I said, a jurisdictional issue because, again, the trial is being held in Virginia, and so they would have to be able to subpoena him and have him actually appear, and that's what actually happened.
Okay, Janine, thank you.
We have so many more good questions coming in, but we want to take a break to recap some other pivotal moments in this trial. And of course, some of the most compelling testimony, certainly the testimony that's gotten some of the most attention, has been the testimony from Johnny Depp himself. Let's listen to some of his testimony on the stand.
Did you experience any consequences after the release of the op-ed?
Absolutely.
And what were those?
I believe it was, I don't think it took Disney very long, maybe a couple of days, to announce that that I had been removed from the Pirates of the Caribbean films franchise, which I learned about reading in reading one of these type of some magazine, or the article where Sean Bailey was quoted, which was very odd to me, as I've had many creative conversations with the Disney people, even to the point of where they were asking me to come back and write Pirates. Sorry.
What, to your understanding, is the status of Pirates 6?
At this point?
Yes.
I believe it's in dangle mode.
Mr. Depp, have you ever physically assaulted Miss Heard?
Never.
Have you ever sexually assaulted Miss Heard?
Never. Certainly not.
What have you lost as a result of Miss Heard making these allegations against you?
Nothing less than everything. Nothing less than everything.
And jumping on our all-star panel right now is Neil Rockin, the criminal defense attorney. So Neil, let me bring you in and ask your thoughts on how much, sway do you think Johnny Depp had there, talking about how the op-ed impacted him? What impact do you think that had on jurors?
So the section that we just talked about, and we were just shown, was a section from, I believe, from his last bit of testimony. In the beginning of the trial, I thought Johnny Depp was very compelling. And I really thought he was a compelling witness in the very beginning. And I think by the time we watched those clips in the end, I think that one piece where he just talked about at the very end how this impacted him, consumed him, and I think he has a way of speaking that is compelling to a lot of people. He is halting, he talks at times slowly, and I think most importantly, he seems to admit some faults. He doesn't come across like a strong man on the stand, and I think that's very compelling to people. I think that's one of the challenges that Amber Heard faced, which is that she never came across like someone that admitted or conceded to any faults, any negativity, or didn't take any blame for anything. And that's difficult for a lot of people to watch in a trial.
Janine, do you agree? I mean, there's been so much said that, Amber Heard has not been likable on the stand. We're going to listen to some key points from her testimony coming up in a bit, but do you agree with what Neil said?
I absolutely agree with what Neil said. And normally I think when there are questions on the witness stand and you actually, it's a hostile attorney and you turn and you speak to the jury, it can be really helpful. But she did it every single question. It was robotic. It's there. And then going back to Johnny Depp's testimony just now, when he says, I've lost nothing short of everything, I just think it's such a poignant moment when he testifies and he says that I do think it kind of tugs on the heartstrings of the jurors. It tugs on the heartstrings of everybody watching. This is a grown man and he's up there and he's testifying to abuse that he suffered, and he's saying he lost basically everything, his career, everything.
Well, so much more to break down from this trial. We are going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we are going to have many more of your questions. Great questions coming in right now. So thank you and keep them coming. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Stacey Delicat here with Anjanette Levy. We are live outside the Fairfax County Courthouse in Virginia, where we are on day 3 of verdict watch. Deliberations have been going since about 9 this morning. We expect jurors to be taking their lunch break right about now. Anjanette, we've been talking about Johnny Depp, his performances in the UK the last 3 nights. There's some reporting out there that he is going to stay on for the remainder of the show dates with Jeff Beck.
Yeah, and it says some people keep sending this. Well, one person on Twitter keeps sending this to me. It's from Glasgow Live, I believe is what it is, and it says a PR rep of Depp's has confirmed he will stay. However, we're not getting that, so It may be a Jeff Beck person. We're going to look into that a little more, but there are shows scheduled through the 7th. I think there's no show tonight. There is a show tomorrow night, and then shows through Tuesday the 7th.
So the reason I brought that up again was that one of the questions that we have gotten from viewers, and again, thank you for all of these questions that have been coming in, is does it look bad for Johnny that he's not in the country for the verdict, but Amber is? And there's been a lot of chatter about this on Twitter. I know I've gotten a lot of people tweeting me when I retweeted articles about him on stage last night. So, Linda, what do you think? Does it look bad that Johnny Depp may not be here when the verdict's read because he may be performing overseas?
He is not supposed to be paying attention to the news media, us, so therefore they may not know.
As they say, and what onlookers think about whether he's here or not. I mean, Anjanette, any feelings on that? The judge said they didn't have to be present, right?
The judge said that, and it's my understanding that these were previously scheduled engagements, these concerts, even though his name is not on there on the website with Jeff Beck. This is what I'm told, that these have been scheduled for some time. It's a work obligation, but you know, this is his case. He brought it,
but
so
you know.
This is his case. He brought it. So I think if it was my case, this is his case. I also have never brought a lawsuit. I've never been in that position. I don't have 2 big careers in Hollywood and music, so I just don't know.
On the other hand, he was here for the testimony. He was here for the rebuttal. He was here, for sort of the most important parts. And obviously, their news travels in an instant now, so he'll be notified whenever something happens. And that goes to another question we got from then. Ariel said, does the jury know that Johnny Depp went to the UK? No, to Linda's point. I mean, they're not supposed to be monitoring any of the news coverage. We don't know for sure if they are or not, but they're certainly not supposed to be keeping tabs on him, so they shouldn't know. Here's another question, and this one comes from Michelle Helton from Facebook, and she says, in the state of Virginia, does the jury have a time limit in making a decision, or can deliberations linger on for countless days? Neil Rockheim, you want to take that one?
Sure. So there's no time limit on deliberations. There are judges who at times want juries to move quickly. They want people to go fast, but there are no time limits on deliberations whatsoever. It can go as fast or as slow or as long as they want. The jury could come back immediately. They could take weeks, entirely up to them.
I'm just wondering, quick poll of everyone on here, because this is the question everyone wants to know. I should have even asked this for the beginning. Now that we're 12 and a half hours or more into this on day 3, I want to say quickly, everyone just give a one-word answer. When do you think at this point we might hear something? Linda?
Today, later on today.
Today? Okay, Janine?
Same, later on today.
Neil?
Today.
Anjanette?
I don't know, because I was influenced by this gentleman who was stopped by our tent earlier, Alan Silman. He's an attorney here in Virginia. I met him last night. He said to me Thursday 11 a.m. That's what he said to me at dinner last night, and he said it on our air just a little while ago. So part of me feels like, maybe Adam's right. I don't know.
We've got 3 against 1 there.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to go with our team that thinks 3. But hey, the point is, right, we've said it a million times, no one has a crystal ball. Let's go back to some more key testimony from this case. Obviously, a big moment in the timeline of the Johnny Depp-Amber Heard story was their divorce and the divorce filing. Let's listen to some testimony from Ed White, one of the attorneys in the divorce case.
So the next demand was that all of the community liabilities that were unresolved, approximately $13.5 million, that Mr. Depp had to pay those liabilities in its entirety. So at that point, she was demanding $14,250,000 of consideration. And then it got worse. The next demand was that all of this consideration be paid to her free of taxation. And counselor, for him to pay $14,250,000 to Miss Heard, that would require him to earn approximately $30 million.
This is so far beyond the scope, so far beyond his foundation of what was discussed.
All right, I'll sustain that last answer. All right.
I misspoke. That's Ed White, Depp's business manager, who you heard testifying there about the divorce and about the money that was at stake in this divorce. And so does this refute claims from Amber Heard and her team that this wasn't about the money? What do you think, Linda?
Oh, I think that this jury knows that this is all about the money. As a matter of fact, I was surprised, quite frankly, that one of the themes the Depp team didn't exploit in its closings was that after he had the business meeting and she learned that perhaps that he was running out of money, that's when this whole thing escalated. This would be the Depp team arguing, and therefore she then had a motive to divorce him and make up these claims. Remember, there was that letter that was sent by her attorney seeking all sorts of support for her and her friends, and when they denied that, that's when she sought the restraining order.
Let's go to another clip now of Ed White on the stand talking about the money at stake.
Any role did increased use of alcohol or drugs have on your ability to be able to arrange and engage in meetings with Mr. Depp?
There were stretches of time when it appeared clear to me that the use of alcohol and drugs was a daily event. And so there were obviously various times when I needed to communicate directly with Mr. Depp. And so some of my conversations with the people I've described involved finding good days and good parts of days when he and I could engage in conversations that he and I needed to engage in, where I knew he would be clear-minded and so on.
Did you observe any increase in Mr. Depp's expressions of anger and upset associated with any increase in financial difficulties or having to discuss financial difficulties?
Yes. His financial circumstances in 2015 had reached a point where I was extremely concerned and was on a very, very regular basis expressing that concern. And it seemed as I increased my level of expressing that concern. There was anger directed in my direction. And so my warnings in 2015 that we were in very dire financial circumstances were not met very favorably.
Okay, so again, I'm sorry, a few technical difficulties out here. I know I said that was going to be Ed White. It was Joel Mandel, Depp's former business manager. So, we're talking about Johnny Depp and his financial situation in all of this. How important is it for the jury to understand his financial situation in this trial? Janine, what do you think?
Well, I think it goes back to what Linda was saying, because, we find out that, possibly this business manager that we just saw testify, had maybe embezzled from him. They ended up settling their lawsuit. But again, the money seems to be running out. She wants support for her and her friends. And then all of a sudden she has this TRO and she has these allegations. And was that actual or was it leverage? And, she said repeatedly on the stand, I was financially independent. It was a source of strife in our relationship. But she didn't seem financially independent when, her friends and family were living in, penthouse 1 or penthouse 5 or whatever. And so it kind of goes to that initial allegation, which is not, the subject of this, but it adds to it. So I think it's important to know that, he was running out of money and she had, a prenup agreement and, this was maybe a way to get more money.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to step away from the clips and go to one more question, which is really more of a procedural question about the jury, because a lot of questions are still coming in even as we go through these clips. Everyone wants to know what's going on now. And Jacqueline Edwards asks on Facebook, I have a question. 7 jurors for this kind of trial seems very small. Is this normal? And do you think a bigger jury would potentially harm the outcome in this case? Of course, remember, this is a civil case versus a criminal trial. This is very different from so many of the trials, murder cases and so forth that we cover on Law and Crime. Linda, how do you answer that question about the 7 jurors? It is a small jury pool, right?
Well, yes, but civil cases, we're all used to criminal cases, right? Civil cases, the amount of jurors in a civil case are set by the state and the court rules of that state. For instance, in New Jersey, where I practice a lot, you have 6 jurors on a civil case, and to get a verdict in your favor, only 5 of the 6 have to agree on the verdict. You get one that you can lose. Virginia has it that there are 7 jurors on a civil case and all have to agree. So in fact, it makes it more difficult to get a verdict in a civil case, even with the 7 jurors. So each state is different. You never have 12 in a civil case from what I've seen, except in federal court, which is an exception.
And obviously, the more jurors you have, I would think the harder it is to get any kind of consensus, right? The more cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. So, all right, great answer on that one, Linda. Thank you. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to have much more live here from Fairfax, Virginia. This is Law and Crime. Welcome back to For the Record, live from Fairfax, Virginia. I'm Stacey Delicat here with Anjanette Levy. We are taking your most pressing questions about the Johnny Depp-Amber Heard trial and the verdict watch, which we are continuing here into day 3. One thing I want to quickly mention is there were a few little developments yesterday. One was a question from the jury regarding whether they were to consider the headline of her op-ed, Amber's op-ed, or the entirety of the op-ed. We're going to talk about that a little later. But late in the day, we found out more about a motion filed by Depp's defense team. They had filed a motion asking the court to strike what they said was an inappropriate argument by Heard's team during the closings, an argument made by Heard's attorney that the jury's decision in this case would send a message to every victim of domestic abuse everywhere. Depp's team had said it improperly invites the jury to focus on a larger social issue, but the judge said, look, the jury already has the case, so there's not much I can do. So she denied the motion. But this leads into our next viewer question, which I want to bring up, which one of our viewers wrote to us and said, Jordan Morris, by the way, from YouTube, thank you. Do you think this case will be used as a case study on domestic violence? Obviously, there's so much we could say about this. There have been so many people opining about this. I know there are a lot of high-profile people penning their own op-eds about this. So let's go to our guest. Janine, what do you think? Are people going to talk about this case in the greater context of domestic violence cases?
I absolutely think that people are going to talk about this with regard to domestic violence, and we've seen a ton of different articles and, why is the internet turning on Amber Heard? We've seen a lot of things like that. But the other thing, and this is what I think is important, is it also kind of shines a light on the fact that men can also be victims of domestic violence. We heard the tapes of Amber, saying, I didn't punch you, I hit you, and go tell a jury, go tell a judge that you're a domestic violence victim and you're a man, and see if they believe you. So I think that that's also going to be a new conversation, because ordinarily, you've got this preconceived notion that it's always the female that is the victim. And here we're seeing a lot of evidence that that may not have been the case in this particular situation.
Both sides, with a lot of people saying, hey, all of this backlash that Amber's facing, certainly all of the threats and negative messages from fans of Depp's could have a chilling effect on other domestic violence survivors from coming forward. But do you agree with that, Neil?
I actually don't. I think that this case is going to this is one of those standalone cases. And I think that there's a lot of talk about domestic violence, sexual violence, but really this case it's unique. It stands alone because we're watching two celebrities, what is in essence a trial. It's like People Magazine or Entertainment Weekly, and we're just watching it all play out. I think this trial is really more about whether or not people who are celebrities, how they live their life, whether they're capable of lying, whether they're capable of telling the truth, and to what degree people are going to, and how they convey themselves. So yes, it's about domestic violence. To me, the worst allegation in this whole case, the very worst thing that I heard was this allegation about a sexual assault with a bottle. It was the worst thing. So one could make the argument it's about sexual violence or sexual assault. And I think part of this case, ultimately, that jury instruction that the judge, the jury question that the judge answered, where she said that headline is the statement, I think that is a very, very favorable ruling for the Depp team, because that headline, it conveys rather directly that Johnny Depp sexually assaulted Amber Heard. And that's what this case is about. Did she lie about these things?
Yeah, interesting. And I do agree with you that I think this is sort of a one-off case because these are celebrities and there is so much in this story. There are so many details that, I mean, are just so out of the realm of reality for normal people that are not in Hollywood and not celebrities. This actually leads into a clip that we want to replay now, because a big part of the testimony obviously is this question of whether or not Amber Heard sustained real and physical injuries, as she said she did. During one of the domestic dispute calls that police received back in 2016, 2 police officers actually showed up at the couple's apartment, their penthouse, and they said that they didn't observe any physical injuries. Let's listen to Officer Tyler Haddon, who was one of the officers, along with Officer Melissa Sins. Both of them responded to the penthouse that 2016 night.
during your investigation, you had other reasons to believe what was true?
That it was a verbal dispute.
And what did you have during your investigation that created in your mind evidence that it was only a verbal dispute?
After discussing the investigation with my partner at the scene, the Ms. Heard refused any medical treatment and had no visible injuries. There was no sign of struggle, and the victim, or correction, the witness that was there that I spoke with was uncooperative as well.
Anything else?
At this time, that's all.
Question, during the entire time you were at the penthouses during the incident, did you witness any bruises on Miss Heard? And there was not a response.
I did not observe any injuries on Miss Heard.
Did you observe any swelling on Miss Heard's face?
I did not.
Did you observe anything that led you to believe that she was a victim of domestic violence?
I did not.
So the officers who responded that night said they didn't see any injuries on Amber Heard. Clearly, this is testimony that helps Johnny Depp's side, right, Linda?
It's kind of important, Stacey, to understand that if the jury is looking for independent corroboration, right, who better to go to than two sets of police officers who came to that apartment? And also you have the SeaTac incident on the Depp people presented on rebuttal, the airport security or police officer, former police officer who saw Amber Heard being aggressive. So that I think that those independent witnesses may be very important when the jury says, okay, who here is telling the truth? And what don't we have? We don't have independent witnesses about the alleged terrible assaults that Neil mentioned, the assault with the bottle, supposedly she was bleeding and never sought medical attention. So I think when the jury deliberates, those things will become more important.
Right. I mean, absolutely. It's her word there. Here we have the officer showing up. But there is a friend of Amber's, who did say that he noticed injuries. Let's listen to the testimony from Joshua Drew.
These are photos taken of her the night of the incident.
Who took the photos?
Some were taken by me, some were taken by Raquel.
And when you say the night of the incident,
May 21.
And are you sitting here today, can you distinguish which were taken by you and which were taken by?
No.
Were you present when they were all taken?
I can't say that definitively.
Okay. Were you present when photos were taken of Ms. Heard's face, like you see on the first page of this?
Yes.
And is this image of Ms. Heard's face on May 21 consistent with your recollection of what her face looked like?
Yes.
And am I correct that unlike, it's a little hard to see because there's shadow on the right, but unlike the prior incident that we looked at where there were photos, here the injury looks like it's mostly on one side?
Correct.
So Amber's friend Joshua Drew testifying that he does remember seeing some bruises. This after the officer said they didn't notice any injuries. How do these two testimonies play against one another, Janine?
So again, we need to see some corroborating evidence from Amber about her injuries because there's a lot of controversy as to whether her pictures are doctored or what's exactly going on, whether she's telling the truth, whether she's lying. But going back to the officer's statements, it would be great for Amber Heard if they testified that they had seen something, she was an uncooperative witness, something along those lines. But remember, every juror brings to that jury box their own personal experiences. And we all just got off the Gabby Pepito case. And, the police had seen her the night before she went missing, and they didn't think anything was wrong. So it's not definitive that nothing was wrong just because they say that they didn't see anything. And, she did have her sister, she had her makeup artist, she had this friend of hers testify. But again, there's really kind of an issue because with all the pictures, the tons of pictures that she has taken and videos that she's taken of Johnny Depp, pictures of the mirrors, you would think she would have more, to show, and she doesn't.
a good question, actually, from Twitch, from Nabia Ziz, who said Amber happened to mention in one of her testimonies she always wears makeup when she goes out, and she talked about having like a color reel of makeup to describe bruises, to disguise bruises, I should say. Why did she not wear makeup when she went to get her TRO, with coincidentally the paparazzi appearing the same day as well? So the question is, did she say in her testimony, Anjanette, why didn't she wear makeup that day to the court?
I believe she said she forgot. It was like the only day she forgot, and she said the following day, and this was on the rebuttal cross-examination by Camille Vasquez. Camille said, well, you had the bruise on the TRO day, right? Yes. And then she put up a picture of she and Rocky Pennington the next day, in which they had their arms around each other, they were laughing, there was no bruise. And Camille said, but you didn't have the bruise that day, and she said, well, I was wearing makeup. So she's claimed this is part of her daytime routine, the morning routine. She always puts it on in the bathroom in the morning and all of this. But the one day she goes with a bruise to the courthouse to request a TRO, she says she forgot to put on the makeup.
And I mean, look, it makes sense that it almost makes sense why she wouldn't. She's going to court for a restraining order. Look what happened to me, here's the bruise. So, whether or not she in fact tipped off TMZ, as Depp's team alleges she did, and as others have insinuated, it is regardless. But she's a celebrity, and LA, the paparazzi are everywhere. She's going to ask for a restraining order, and she's going to show off the bruise.
I do think it's important to point out, though, that I think that if you want to avoid paparazzi, you can. But a lot of times, I think that when we see stuff on TMZ, I think sometimes publicists and stuff like that do tip people off, so their client will be photographed and will get some publicity. So I think these things do, it's kind of like a love-hate relationship with the paparazzi.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. Listen, we have to take another quick break, but when we come back, many more good questions from our viewers coming up. Stay with us. We'll be right back. For the record, we are live here in Fairfax, Virginia, day 3 of Verdict Watch. It is our lunch show, and it is lunchtime for the jurors. They're taking their 30-minute lunch break just about the same time they did yesterday, and we are taking all of your questions. And so I think, Anjanette, here's a good question about the jurors, because I know you were here for jury selection, and you know about the composition of the jury. Yeah. Mike Lane on Facebook says, jury selection, what did each side look for in a juror? Do you think they tried to find people that didn't know Depp? Is that even possible? Because Depp is just like, right, a figure in pop culture, at least for anyone born, before 1995. I don't know,
I don't know. I mean, I'll just tell you, I don't want to date myself here, but when I was a kid, my mom loved 21 Jump Street and would say, I grew up in Cincinnati, so mom would always say, well, this Johnny Depp, and she would make a remark about Johnny Depp and say, he's from Kentucky. Okay, fine. So, that tells you, how long I was a kid and I knew who Johnny Depp was. But I can tell you, I've not ever seen the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and I know that all these fans are. I'm going to probably get haters now. Don't hate on me. I'm a busy lady. I work in news.
That's the thing. I also know Johnny Depp, like Edward Scissorhands. I know like the '90s movies, not like the newer stuff.
So my grandma took me to see Edward Scissorhands in the theater. We saw that, and I saw Donnie Brasco in the theater. But anyway, I haven't seen the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I'm going to put that out there. That said, I wasn't in the courtroom. It was very crazy for jury selection, so getting in was not easy, and you couldn't get into the overflow, and it was not fun. I think we were only allowed in the overflow that day, and I couldn't get in. I do know for a fact they asked, I was told they asked, do you know who Johnny Depp is? And Johnny Depp all the jurors said yes or whatever. They all said, yeah, we know who he is. They said, do you know who Amber Heard is? And I think like a couple, I was told, raised their hands. So obviously he's far more well known than she is, because he's been around a lot longer and he's had these very successful film roles. So he's known around the world. So I do know that the jury was made up of, and you have to keep in mind too, this is not top of mind. They might know who Johnny Depp is, but this whole case was not top of mind, I don't think, for these jurors in Fairfax County, they're probably not following this.
Right. I mean, this Hollywood drama all of a sudden is plopped down here.
Right. So they're probably not doing that. But I do know that there was one gentleman, he appears to be in his late 50s or 60s. He's one of the jurors. And there's another guy, it looks like he's in his 30s, a woman, African-American woman who appears to be 40s or 50s, Asian woman that appears to be 20s or 30s, and then I think 3 younger Asian men, like in their 20s. So obviously both sides, they did whatever they did, and they struck some jurors, and this is what they ended up with. So they thought, I'm assuming both sides thought that this panel could be fair.
Yeah, I mean, that's who they decided on. So that's some good background there and explanation. Here's an interesting question that comes from YouTube. The Makeup Mova asks, does anyone think the time limits the judge set hurt either side? Seems like both sides left out great points in their closing arguments, right? The judge clearly said both sides have 2 hours for closing arguments, and in fact, when it came to the rebuttals, Amber's side only had like 6 minutes or something, right? Whereas Johnny's team had longer. Linda, did this time limit, you think, hurt either side?
Well, we're used as lawyers to have time limits in closings. That's not unheard of. So, no, I don't think the closings. I don't know about the presentation of the case. It was the first time I've experienced seeing time limits in a state civil case. Quite frankly, I grew to like it as the time went on, because, people couldn't grandstand and play. They had to get their points in. But in terms of a closing, the closings, if you looked at them, they were all pretty much pre-written. And usually when you start a case, you start with your closing and then you figure out how you're going to try your case. So I do not think that the time limits on closing hurt either side. Perhaps the Amber Heard team didn't use their rebuttal time wisely, but I thought that was probably one of the best moments in the trial for Rottenborn was his close, his 7-minute rebuttal time. He was succinct, he was short, and he made points.
Yeah, I mean, and also to your point about the judge keeping time limits for the rest, It's always good for the media and the viewers. We know what's coming up. We knew that closings were going to be on Friday. But to your point about Rottenborn, Marita Hoy Grindenhaug from Norway asked, Rottenborn came across as a really rude man and Bredehoff just attacked witnesses. Is that normal for attorneys, or is there a kind of polite way to be in court in the U.S.? What did you think of the demeanor of the attorneys, Neil?
Interesting question. I thought that at times some of the lawyers interrupted some of the witnesses. I think it was a very different case than we've seen, where lawyers have to constantly sort of tiptoe around or be very careful how they approach witnesses. I have yet to see in a case that I have watched or tried where lawyers cut off the witness in the middle of an answer and actually didn't have the judge say something like, let the witness finish. That's very unusual to me. I haven't seen that. So I think the way a lawyer treats a witness, I think at some point, quite candidly, you have to feel like you have permission to do it. And I think at some point in this case, the lawyers that were cutting off witnesses, like I thought Camille must have felt like she had permission to do it.
Wait, Neil, now I have to cut you off like the attorneys were cutting off the witnesses because we're at our break. Neil Brockheim, thank you so much for being with us. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with much more here on the Lunch Hour, live from Fairfax, Virginia, in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. Stay with us.